Hi guys, if you don't know me already, my name is Michelle Vinakurov, and I am the one behind the series of The World of Autism, which is my blog. And I've been running on guest interviews for like the past few months now, really, and it's been wonderful having the amount of people that have been coming on. And today's guest is actually the first professional that I'm gonna be talking to today. Here we have Miss Janice Nathan. Janice, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. I'm excited. Excited to be here. And I'm neurodivergent with some autistic traits, but not autistic. But there's actually a lot of, I'm now in a group on Facebook, Autistic SLPs, speech therapists. There's a lot, it's a growing group. Neurodivergent, autistics, we didn't know each other existed, basically, I think until the quarantine, until this COVID thing, because we all started kind of congregating online. So it's been wonderful because I really used to think I was the only one out there. It's awesome because we understand each other, but we also approach therapy the same way. With that extra insight that you have.
Yeah.
So, but to start out, like how I ended up here. So my parents were on the spectrum, I now understand. They obviously were undiagnosed because it was way back when. They didn't date. They were set up by their two families. And my brother's autistic. I'm neurodivergent. I have severe visual spatial deficits, but I also realizing I have some autistic traits that, when I share my private stuff that I've never shared with neurotypicals, with autistics, of course, they're fine. It's like, well, yeah, okay, so who cares? So I'm realizing more and more, just didn't realize. Because growing up, it was really about who was able to do more in my family. That's kind of how I looked at things, because my dad was able to do more than my mom. And my brother struggled with everything: speech, language, learning, reading. I mean, every struggled throughout his academic career was a nightmare. So I've always thought I was neurotypical because I was able to, even though I had to navigate the neurotypical world the way autistics do, which is watching and imitating and observing and suppressing the way I was at home in a lot of ways to look, quote, normal. Because I was able to navigate the outside world more, I thought that made me neurotypical. So I grew up, and didn't know what I wanted to do when I was a grown-up. And I got my bachelor's and master's in my 30s, actually. There's anxiety and depression in my family. And in my 20s, I just wouldn't have survived grad school. There's no way. So my brother got his diagnosis. I was still oblivious. I ended up working with kids with autism. It just fell into my lap, but I didn't know we were autistic. And my brother got his diagnosis at the age of 50.
Wow.
And that was when it was like I felt like I'd been adopted, and I woke up. Because when I look back at my life, I realized I had a much different childhood than I thought I had. I thought our family, even though there was so much my family couldn't do, and they were looked at by the neurotypical world, we were all looked at, myself, my brother, and my parents, as being different. I mean, I saw that, the looks, the chuckles.
Yeah.
And, but I still thought we were, quote, normal. And then I realized that my family was autistic. And that made me start re-examining myself, because I do have a learning disability, like mathematical, visual spatial, navigating, finding things. I'm a case study at Carnegie Mellon University, because they were intrigued by my cognitive profile. They had seen one like me before. I'm like an autistic profile, but I got zapped on all of the visual spatial parts of the brain. Like my language is off the charts. I'm like a mild nonverbal learning disorder, I think, because I was able to imitate enough where I fit in, just enough.
Right.
I would say and do things that people would laugh, But I learned if I laughed with them, they didn't think I was weird because I
Uh-huh.
obviously knew I said something odd.
Hmm.
So I learned to blend. But anyway, so, over the years, I realized I started doing therapy very differently, language therapy, very differently from what was being done. And
Hmm.
I realize now, because I've met other autistics who are speech therapists, and they approach therapy the same way I do. I was blown away by that. Because up until I met them, which is just this year, everybody would look at me and they were just, amazed because I was doing things, I was, for whatever reason, had the insight to understand I have to teach that which they need explicitly taught.
Yes,
You
that's
know?
super important. Yeah, that's why like being specific and like clear of what
Yes.
teaching to the child. That's like my approach always with
See?
professionals. Same thing. I'm like,
Because you get that. You get
yeah,
what was hard for you,
yeah,
is obvious to you what then they're going to need help with.
yep.
And also, I mean, I use my autistic DNA to my advantage. Like I now realize I read the cognitive neuroscience research far and above the average master's level speech therapist. But to me, it's not work, it's fun. I'm not bored by it. And in fact, my husband, way back when, jokingly told me I had to also bring like a pleasure book on vacation because I would only read research. So now I divide my time up. I read, but like now I'm just comfortable and I'm proud of myself and my family. I was always ashamed of my family and myself because we were looked at as being different. Even the only reason why people allowed me to blend, I was able to imitate. And when I said something that normally neurotypicals wouldn't say out loud, but we're all thinking it. So to me, it was like, well, I know you're all thinking it. So why is it a big deal if I say it out loud? But when they would start laughing, I would laugh with them. And that helped me, oh, okay, I must be neurotypical because I get that they're laughing and thinking, I mean, I didn't understand, like I still say things that people laugh at. In fact, anybody that knows me real well who ends up watching this will chuckle because one family member who had kind of married into our family, she said to me you are remembered. As in, when I leave a room, neurotypical kind of go, that was a little different. But now I own it and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of who I am, who my family. I realize now how much harder my family had to work through the years than what came naturally to neurotypicals. I mean, to be married, to raise kids, we moved around a lot because my dad was in the Navy, but to be able to navigate all that. My mom did the shopping and took care of the checkbook and made us breakfast in the morning and made sure we had clothes. And so, I mean, there were things that were harder for my mother to do, but I mean, she did an amazing job with no support. And my brother, who should be a non-reader, he now he loves to read as an adult. He loves to read mainly, science fiction, fantasy. I love fantasy more than science fiction, but we kind of blend together. But he should not love to read, and he does. And like literacy is part and parcel of what I do because I hope you don't mind that I'm kind of going on and on, but I look at what's from a lot of autism interventions, especially those who are considered not as competent because of how they present on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And literacy tends to be on the back burner. They're taught to read index cards or fill in the blank, but they're not really given books and taught literacy. But anyway, so I just like all those pieces that I saw, why isn't any, to me was so obvious it needed to be addressed. Right. And it's not because I tell people it's not because I'm wonderful. Well, one, the research kind of guides, where I need to go with it. But to me, it's like if something's obvious, why don't you just do it? So that's kind of how I look at it. But yeah, so that's kind of like, you know, where I am now. And so actually I'm excited because now my husband and I, with a wonderful group of researchers at University of Pittsburgh, we have 2 research grants. And we're looking at an intervention that deals with building coping skills and helping someone get through stress and realizing they're stressed and how to show that in a way that neurotypicals will understand so they can get help.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited. That's just like, so that's like, you know, just beyond belief, one that people, I think the paradigm shift is starting to change now that more and more neurodivergent and autistics and autistic women, I don't know when you were diagnosed, but a lot of autistic women aren't getting diagnosed till they're well into adulthood, you know?
Right.
And so we're all kind of, I'm not autistic, you know, I do want to clarify. I don't want anybody ever thinking, well, you're pretending to be autistic, but I do have autistic traits and I'm definitely not neurotypical. I used to tell when I would present to groups, I would always kind of talk about my family, not realizing that I have stories to tell too that are odd.
No.
You know,
Absolutely.
One story that I'm now not embarrassed to share, but I was actually very embarrassed to share this because neurotypicals get this, and my husband and others have tried to explain this to me, and I don't get it, which tells me I'm approaching things a little differently. And my husband's leaving, so I'm waving by. So I was called up for jury duty, and I took things literally. So we hear the case.
Done that too.
And after we hear the case, the attorney says to us, packed courtroom, based on what you've just heard, do you still feel you can be impartial? If not, raise your hand. I thought, so I raised my hand. I was the only person in a packed courtroom. I could feel the silence. I turned around and the entire courtroom staring at me. And I'm thinking to myself, you all feel the way I do. You're just all lying about it. But I didn't say that out loud. And they've tried to explain that to me. And I said, but the case is so clear cut. I mean, they caught him. You know, he kidnapped somebody. They held her hostage. The police came in. So based on that, I thought, well, how, you know, I mean, if they didn't know who did it, but we think he did it, that'd be different. So anyway, I'm probably giving way too much info on that, but that's when I still don't get it. I would still, well, now I've learned. I won't raise my hand no matter how much I believe someone, the facts are clear, but now I know I won't raise my hand because they knew not to raise their hand, and I don't know how they knew that.
Yeah, some things that they get, like sometimes I don't get, and that's just how it is for what we go through and stuff. Just like sometimes what makes sense to them doesn't to us, and vice versa, other way around. So
and now you know, if you get called to jury duty, never raise your hand.
No.
So I needed to share that because over the years I've shared stories about my mom and my dad, who I thought I would, until now, I used to say, well, my dad wasn't autistic, but he was severely socially phobic. And I realized he might as well, whether he was autistic or not, I think he would fit the criteria. Like at even family gatherings at dinner, he would completely look like he was zoned out. Like into his own head.
That was me, like when I was younger. Yeah.
Yeah, and my dad was an adult, you know, with kids, and so he would stare straight ahead, and I thought, oh, he must not hear anything going on. But later, when I would talk to him, he knew everything. But it was just his way. I think, yeah, you know, the anxiety. It was easier to check out and too effortful. It was just too effortful. And that's what I find, that I'm now realizing how exhausting when I was, like now I've been quarantined because, you know, I can't really, and we're doing the research, which is all remote. So I'm able to do that. Right. But like when I worked and came home, I was exhausted and drained, and I like talking to anybody. Like I would just kind of zone out myself. I'd go down, I would have the TV on, I'd have my iPad in front of me, but just like I will watch the same movies over and over and over again. I will watch the same TV shit. If I get like that feeling, I need to watch this TV series, I watch them from beginning to end and over it, and then I do it again, and I do it again. And I'm realizing that's probably an autistic trait, but it's calming.
Yeah.
It's just calming. Because I've seen and heard it a bazillion times, but
that's how, when that's like one of those like, I know one of those traits about that, that's the same thing where like you get into a song that you like over and over again, or like show or anything like that, or rereading something over and over again too. That's
yes.
Rereading books like over and over again. That's like
yes. I do that too. Yeah. Like my husband, I finally, you can only hide so much. So in the car, I will have a song on repeat. You know, have a CD in there. I just put it on repeat, and I'll listen to it till my brain just says, okay, I need another song now. Could be a week, could be a month. But every time I'm driving, hearing that, and my husband said, do you realize you have that song on repeat? I said, I know. It just feels good. So, yeah, so I'm happy. I'm glad I'm able to talk about me today, because through the years, whenever I've talked to groups, oblivious about myself, I would talk about what my brother did or what my mother would do, because people, if you tell people, oh, my family was autistic, I know they need to hear an example or two to go, oh, right, yeah, okay. So now I thought it's my turn to let people hear about me, and so my family can, just rest over here.
Yeah, I get that in a way, because like when you were saying about with your family, I'm like, that's the complete opposite for me. So I'm the only one in my entire family that lives with any disability in general. So
Okay.
yeah, so I live with autism. I have 3 other siblings, and out of 4 of us, I'm the only one that lives with just any disability in general. And I was diagnosed at 2 years old, which you don't usually hear that a lot from.
No, you don't. Even now, you still don't.
Yeah. So and a lot of things you were saying about even with your family, though, I went through what they've gone through pretty much, especially with the language development part of it. That was my weakest point, because I couldn't verbally say my first word until I was 6 years old, not until I was 6. So,
yeah.
and I had echolalia afterwards, and then it was just lots and lots of intensive speech therapy. I had early intervention services when I was younger, including applied behavioral analysis therapy. I had occupational therapy, physical therapy. I had everything. And this is what I want to tell everyone right now, that early intervention does work and helps a lot, tremendously. So,
yes.
And actually, I wanted to say about thank you so much for all you do as a speech therapist and stuff in the community, because with everything going on right now, it's crazy. Like, I know, like even for me, like I'm actually working in the school building. Like, we're doing a hybrid. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
So with the hybrid learning and stuff, it's pretty much where we do have students in person and we have students online. So I've been doing both, and it's really, really different to one another. So I wanted to know actually a little bit more of what your experiences is like teaching, like doing speech therapy online to students.
So I really have, just because of the stress that I've been going through, my own anxiety, because I'm immunocompromised, I've had to put my private practice on. I have a private practice. I've had to put it on hold. And now that we have the 2 research grants, I it'll have to get pushed back, but I will be doing therapy online, which I'm nervous about. So actually we had to change the age groups of the study because initially they were going to be younger kids,
Uh-huh.
but online, so they're going to be older kids. And then I was supposed to train for this first grant, I was supposed to train grad students, but I can't because I can't be face to face. So, and graduate students, they need help. They need, like, you have to be like help, not just remotely. There's no way they could learn what I do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be doing the therapy. I will be able to let you know after, but there are, I could hook you up with some autistic SLPs that are actually working.
That'd be cool.
Give me your info and I'll put your info on our Facebook group.
Okay.
In fact, if anybody's out there is neurodivergent or autistic and they're a speech language pathologist, contact me. I'll hook you up with our group. You can be a graduate student, doesn't matter. All are welcome. Neurodivergent as well as, autistic. So I love everybody I've met. Just, I can't thank them enough because it's helped me. I'm still on my journey, learning about myself.
Right.
And so that's wonderful that because, I know a neurotypical would talk to you and probably go, oh, you can't even tell she's autistic.
I get told that
You get told that a lot, sure.
Every time, yeah.
Right. But I know how hard you've worked and how hard you're working. Yeah. And I just know how much effort goes into it. And I think if I were to tell neurotypicals anything, it doesn't matter how happy and relaxed and capable someone looks, our brains are working a lot harder to look the same as neurotypicals.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Like, everyone has a different way of thinking and stuff, so it's just, if we're able to like help each other through that and just get to understand each other, that's going to make the world a better place too.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what, and I completely agree with that. So I thank you for sharing your advice to just neurotypicals. And do you have any advice that you want to give to other speech therapists and stuff that are working with children?
Actually, I'm not going to get into specifics, but there's actually the neurodiversity movement, speech therapists, occupational therapists. We don't really have any physical therapists yet, but it's called the Neurodiversity Collective. Julie Roberts, shout out to Julie Roberts. She's this amazing woman who started the whole thing. And I'm actually, my husband and I are advocacy chairs for that group. And so, I would just recommend that any therapist join the Neurodiversity Collective because understanding, I guess the main thing I really feel is that to ask an autistic child how they're doing, and if, people, because a lot of therapists will say, well, how do I know if he or she likes this? How do I know what they're thinking? And my first thought is always, well, just ask them. They'll tell you.
Yeah.
They will tell you how that, and so I guess it's really to know that there's always a reason behind whatever they're observing. And that reason is linked to stress and anxiety at trying to fit in, and they're doing at that moment, that's the best they can give. I think that would be just the most basic 101 advice is to know, always look at whatever they did as their best attempt at trying.
Exactly.
Because then it's never punished. It's not looked at as a negative. It's, then you can just say, thank you for trying. That was the best trying I ever saw anybody do. And, number one, to keep them regulated and to trust in the relationship and all that. But I think that's the main thing I would, really, really would ask other therapists to remember.
Right. That's absolutely true. Like, just having that that relationship like between like therapist or teacher to the student. That's the number one thing in order for any child to do well in school and stuff and beyond, is to have that that trust in the relationship no matter what. So that's a really valid point that you brought on. So thank you so much for sharing that and for
Thank
coming
you.
on
And I
to share your story and everything. So
I
thank
just have to tell you, I love your throw pillows there. I've been looking at them. I love them. Anyway,
you.
sorry. I got a little distracted by, they look so happy. But thank you for inviting me, and just, wishing you a safe and just easy rest of your school year.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care.